All right, heading number 3, cultural change in Tang and Song China. This is part of chapter 15, the resurgence of empire in East Asia. So this is the thing, the two things that College Board is most concerned about is you knowing how Chinese cultural traditions continue to influence neighboring regions. You also need to know that Buddhism and its core beliefs continue to shape societies in Asia, including a lot of branches, schools, and practices. So this is the thing, is that some of you took Ancient World last year, and so you already, I say Buddhism, and that actually means something to you. There's a lot of thinking processes and religions that I need to kind of catch everybody else on. So I'm going to do a lot of filling in the blanks for people who didn't do Ancient World last year. Starting with Confucianism. So what is Confucianism? Confucianism is a thought process. It's not, in many ways, it's not really a religion because it avoids, ideas of who God is and ideas of metaphysics like supernatural stuff. It is focused on ethics and politics. So Confucius was a teacher who wanted to become a bureaucrat, and he wrote all of these things on how a real bureaucrat should behave. He's going to say the focus is to become a superior individual, to become a junzi. So a bureaucrat, someone you want to entrust with power over society, should have ren, kindness and benevolence, should li, should have a sense of property and fairness and following the rules. And also that xiao, which is filial piety, have a strong loyalty to the emperor and to the government. So what happened is that, well, how do I become this junzi? I practice these. Well, how do I practice these? I practice these by studying what Confucius said about how a bureaucrat should be. And Confucius is going to use the texts or the thinking from the Zhou dynasty, which is an ancient Chinese society. So again, we're trying to become the Superman. If you didn't know, Superman was Chinese for a while. So anyway, now another thing. So whereas Confucianism is how I treat bureaucrats and so on and so forth, another underlying idea is this idea of Taoism. Now, the Tao is the way, and that is basically the easiest shortcut for me to say is think of Tao like the Force in Star Wars. If you like Star Wars, that's the easiest way. It's basically just, it's everywhere. It is just the cosmos and nature itself. It is not only, another example often is water, but another way is to say like the cavity of pot, so like the whole of a pot. So not the pot itself, but the empty space that's captured within the pot. Again, some of your heads are hurting. We can talk about this later. The other thing that's important to note is the doctrine of Wu Wei, which is that if you try to control the universe, then you're just going to make things worse. So the thing a person should do is just to disengage. Let the Tao be the Tao. Let the Tao do the Taoing. Okay, so you shouldn't really try to, advance your education, build an empire for yourself. You should just live in harmony with nature and cultivate knowledge. Why do I explain this to you? Because we are going to have this new thing come up, which is which is going to be Neo Confucianism. So what's interesting is if you notice, Taoism and Confucianism really don't mesh well together. One is about just letting whatever happens and not studying. Tao and Confucianism is all about that. What's interesting is that some intellectuals start to combine the two practices. They use Confucianism to relate with people, and then they use Taoism to relate to kind of like the nature of the universe or God. This again fits in perfectly with the Superman analogy when they created this character a few years ago. So what happens is that he is the Superman, but where does he get his inner power from? He gets his inner power essentially from the Tao. Okay, I could talk more about comics. I won't. All right. So Tang and Song. So now that we're caught up, so what's happening is that there's going to be a declining confidence in Confucianism after the collapse of the Han dynasty, which makes sense. If it's not, the Han is going to be big on Confucianism. They have issues, so therefore there must be issues with Confucianism. This is going to lead to an influx of popularity for Buddhism. We're also going to have other religions like Christianity, Manichaeism, Zoroastrianism, Islam. They're going to start to come into China. And where do they come from? Well, they come from primarily the foreign merchant class. So this is going to lead to something which probably doesn't make sense to you, which is that merchants are going to often be very effective missionaries because, again, people would relate to each other more in commerce instead of just clicking on the internet. So what's Buddhism? Long story. But we'll go ahead and talk about Siddhartha. So Siddhartha was an actual person. We've got historical records about him. The story, though, is that he's going to be incredibly rich. And after seeing sickness and death for the first time, says, what's the purpose of any of this? And leaves to figure it out. He spends years of extreme asceticism, so just trying to live as simply as possible. And after meditation, he becomes the Buddha or enlightened one. And again, he sits under the Bo tree and more of that, but I have to give you the highlights. Okay, so what is this idea that comes to him? As he says, look, the important thing here is the Dharma or the Buddhist doctrine, which is this: is that there are four noble truths, like the universe, all life is suffering. Second, there's an end of suffering. And so removing desire is the thing that ends the suffering. And so that must be done through the Eightfold Path, which means using right view, intention, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. Great news. You do not have to memorize any of this stuff to the right. I would recommend, though, that you do remember the Four Noble Truths, since it's kind of the basis of the Buddhist religion. Okay. All right. So there's three essentially types of Buddhism that you need to know about. So as these ideas spread, they originate in India, and as it spreads, one version is called Mahayana Buddhism, which is called the greater vehicle. It is actually different than the original. It spreads into India, China, Japan, Korea, Central Asia. I'll talk more about why it's the greater vehicle later. The other one is called Hinayana, the lesser vehicle. It's also known as Theravada Buddhism, and that's in kind of an earlier version. And this is where, like, Ceylon, Sri Lanka, Burma, Thailand, that's where that's going to go. So it's going to kind of go up into the north, and then it's also going to go down into the southeast. Quickest thing to explain it, Hinayana is tougher than Mahayana, which is one of the reasons why Mahayana moves more. Okay, so Mahayana Buddhism, especially popular in Western China, from 600 to 1000. And we're going to have, so in Dunhuang, we're going to have this incredible oasis, which is going to be very popular with lots of temples and libraries and so on and so forth. One of the things that is going to make them successful is that converts are going to donate land holdings to the different temples. And so that's good because it allows them to take care of themselves and food. And one of the reasons you do that, why you would give it to the Buddhists, is that they would often, the Buddhist monks would take that agriculture and then they would give it to the poor. So what they would do is they're taking care of people. Okay, so that's going to make them obviously very popular. Small problem with Buddhism coming into China is they're basically opposites, similar but not exactly the same as Taoism. Okay, so Buddhism. So one of the things that's the same about it is that they're both text-based. There's teachings from Buddha you can look up. There's teachings from Confucius you can look up. Buddhism is all about the metaphysics. It's all about killing desire and meditating and reaching nirvana by disengaging with the world. Confucianism is all about ethics and politics. Buddhism is a real ascetic ideal. So celibacy means that you don't have sex, and isolation, whereas Confucianism is really focused on procreation and filial piety, basically being connected to the people, family around you, and serving them and doing what they want you to do. Well, so what happens is with this Mahayana Buddhism, we get this version called Chan or Zen Buddhism. So what's interesting is the Buddhists take take similar ideas or terms from Taoism and kind of merge it into this new form of Buddhism. So the Dharma is translated as the Tao, and Nirvana is translated as Wu Wei. And so it becomes especially appealing to people who were practicing Taoism. It also accommodates the family lifestyle because what can happen is that they say for one son in the monastery means 10 generations of salvation for their family. Okay, so instead of focusing on the textual study, it's more about the meditation. So as you can see here, again, this is one of the things that makes it like a type of Mahayana. So you can be saved because your son works at the monastery. Okay, in Theravada, it's more about what you specifically do. So what's going to happen is that Buddhists are going to be persecuted by these established groups in China, and that's going to be supported by the late Tang dynasty. What's going to happen is by the 840s, we're going to have some systematic closures of Buddhist temples, some expulsions, missionaries kicked out. It wasn't just Buddhists, it was Zoroastrians, Christians, Manichaeists as well. One of the big reasons for this is the economic motive, is that when by kicking out the Buddhists, they were able to take back the land that people had given them into their monasteries. Now, what's interesting is we start to get, so Buddhism does start to go away in some ways, but in some ways it remains because when the Song dynasty takes over, they don't persecute Buddhists, but they do favor Confucianism, which means Neo-Confucianism starts to be influenced by Buddhist thought. So it's more of Buddhism and Confucianism than Taoism and Confucianism. Um, uh, so Mr. Shi here is one of those important synthesizers. And again, Neo-Confucianism might be the religion you associate with China,